G'day friends and fans. Welcome to Dave Talk Stuff Ukraine War Update for the 1st of November 2025. I'm your host, the author, David Applegate, author of the books The Boyhood of Cade, Power Games, Into the Elsebound, and The Erotic Tales from the Empire. Part 1 out now, Part 2 coming soon-ish. And thanks to all those who support the channel. You can support the channel through the links in my link tree. More information at the end. Now, of course, key events. Unusual, but Al Jazeera is actually showing, now and again, images of the war from the other side. Now, of course, a lot of people will ignore this, but here is a building in Donetsk, Russian-controlled city of Ukraine, and it was hit during, yet again, Ukraine's deliberate shelling of Donetsk. One of the things Russia has routinely complained about to the UN and fallen off deaf ears as the Court of Human Rights in Europe hears no evil, sees no evil, and will speak of no evil committed by Zelensky. The man is considered a hero in the eyes of the liberal establishment, and no matter how many civilians he kills, maims, tortures, murders, or displaces with his shelling of their homes, even though the fighting has long since left Donetsk, he intends to drive out every Russian, despite the fact the people of Donetsk were there before him, and in fact he is an ethnic Russian. But that is the problem, is it? The bias of war, where morality is thrown out the window by those who only care about winning. You're not a winner when you're oppressing civilians. But of course, liberals, hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. Rules are for thee, not for the D. Now, apparently this is one of the heaviest fightings as we come up to the rotation times for the various armies, with Russia launching 673 attacks in 19 locations. Now, of course, the Ukrainians only report civilian casualties to misinform, to make sure that you do not see the conflict between Russia and Ukraine as a struggle between two obstinate men, but a vicious cycle of oppression and oppression. Now, Ukraine claims to have struck a Russian power plant with Neptune cruise missiles. Well, the Ukrainian Navy doesn't exist. It's these are, but they use civilian boats to hide, and sooner or later we're going to hear about this. See film or something. Something's going to give. The Russians aren't going to put up with the Ukrainian shit. Now, Ukraine claims to have hit 160 Russian oil and energy facilities, and again, every time the Russians hit something, Ukraine cries like little babies. And of course, as so often with this war, they repeat the same stories over and over again about Russian surveillance planes. Hey! You spy on them, they spy on you, stop whining like babies, act like adults. But no, they gotta whine and make mountains out of molehills so that the hyperbolic, immature, low IQ people will chimp out about Russia. Why? Because that's what they do when they see a story. They assume the negativity and go, oh, Russia violating the Polish airspace. No, they flew along the coast. Okay? Stop crying like babies. Alright, so we have fighting in the buffer zone, attacks on Sumy, Today, Kharkiv got spared, but Ukrainian troop positions in supply depots got hit. Bit of the Russians have advanced again in the buffer zone. Fighting has resumed in Kupiansk. The Russians have taken more territory, and in a series of rapid maneuvers, most of Kupiansk is now under Russian control, and they have advanced into... trying to look at the name. It's... we'll call it Yuvli, because I'm not very good at pronouncing them. Now, of course, an estimated, remember the estimates put anywhere from 1,000 to 10,000 Ukrainians trapped in Zero on the other side of the river. The Russians now control the bridge to the north and the south. Okay, there was, we go through, no other crossing that we can see marked on the map, except maybe here, but it's alleged that that bridge was destroyed. Now, of course, the makeshift bridge and evacuation plan should have been in place, but Ukrainians aren't allowed to retreat. Now, Russians have advanced a little bit, but not much in other areas here in Kupiansk. There's fighting in the area north of Lyman, the Russians having advanced again. Only a little bit of territory here. The Russians are closing in on Seversk from all sides, from the east, north and south. I shouldn't say all sides. Fighting south of Chavez Yar has resumed. More territory has been taken. Street fighting in Konsk, as well as artillery strikes. Fighting to the south with very little results. Though, as we go west, there's a bit more territory taken, with a few towns now. Well, a few towns, small towns, taken by the Russians, with the Ukrainians still liberated Dope, even though the Russians haven't been to Dope yet. But Dope has been smoking dope and claiming they once again liberated Dope. Alright, I know the town's not named Dope, so please don't get to the comment section and have hissy fitting. Russians have advanced a little bit here in Miri, closing in on the from the east and the south. So the Ukrainians are holding them in a few areas. The Russians continue to make advances in POK. Now it looks like they've taken control of this road and rail junction, with only some pushback. Apparently, a landing operation with Black Hawk helicopter behind Russian lines took place. So they probably came in, rescued a few of their commanders, and said adios to the rest, and flew off before the Russians could respond. That's about it. I mean, wow. Because this is what Ukrainians do. It's all about prestige. It's all about appearances. Never mind militarily. This is pretty much like rescuing Mussolini, you know. So what? In the grand scheme of things, you delayed the end of the war by 0.0001 seconds, you know. You bought yourself a little bit more time in office. You rescued some comrades. course, mostly it's about party loyalty. So, at least, I mean, mind you, out of the hundreds of conflicts, a handful, right? Black Hawk, handful of people. Or delivering a ton of supplies, but they flew off with people. So now the Russians allegedly have advanced further here than indicated on the map, and they've taken some more areas here, but it's not really that much. Now we go to the rest of the map. No attack on Crimea, no attack on the Kerch Bridge, usual cross river artillery. This is a particularly deadly area for Ukrainians as they try to come across this narrow area. This area is littered with dead bodies and boats. From both sides. I'm not saying it's a one-sided affair, but so is all this, the lower parts here, all swampy and muddy, and it's horrific. So much so that they often have to evacuate Ukrainian troops on a regular basis because of the smell. You actually get physically sick. Now, Ukraine has reported attacks on Russia, but not many. But according to the Russians, there's been a few. Which is weird, right? Usually the pro-Ukrainian source would be bragging about all their attacks on Russia. Well, we'll get to that shortly. First up, in an interesting article, normally you wouldn't read about this, but Sweden has been increasing its support. Apparently, they're now considering to send up to 150 fighter jets. Now, this is a series of packages. It's not 150 all at once. There's training and jets delivered in batches as each squadron passes. It's not as a pilot passes, the whole squadron has to pass, I think. And they'll be delivered in stages through Poland. The exact details seem to be sketchy. It could be anywhere from a year to 2 years. This is all long-term planning by Zelensky. I mean, Captain Sky Shield to stay in office perpetually, right? Now, apparently it's using what's called crowd forecasting. This is where they have phone polls, and the people get to vote. This is a quasi artificial intelligence where Zelensky's ditching the usual advisors for a bunch of academics answering questions on their phones, supposedly to predict future events and potentially developments in the war. It's actually the cover-up. It's actually, so-called collective intelligence. Apparently this GLIMP system is used, and they claim uncanny accuracy. This is a artificial intelligence project, although apparently a lot of the questions and actually generated by users, processed by artificial intelligence, but the actual answers come from real people, selected academics, selected business leaders, people around the world, so-called professional analysts. So they don't have to work full-time in a single campaign. They can work on many, right? They have over 10,000 forecasters, and they majority vote the outcome of events. It's for statistical analysis. And one of them is about meeting Putin with only a 10% chance given. And apparently Zelensky, in order to boost the effectiveness, is allowing the outcomes to dictate his actions, which means just fucking get rid of him. He's not doing his job. He's cruising off others so that later down the track he can blame others, which is what weak people do. Now, of course, the system says there's little hope for, 91%, not before 26. Now, Medvedchuk is the leading Russian opposition and in some cases believed to be next in line. Despite being leader of the opposition, it's widely accepted that most Russians currently in government will retire when Putin retires. Now, he has seen much of the conflict from a vantage point none of us have, and that is looking over Putin's shoulder. He has more access to Putin than anybody else in the world. He's leader of the opposition, right? He sees the same intelligence, gets to ask questions, gets to sit on in national emergency meetings, everything. And one thing he's noted is not just what they call endless hostilities against Russia. Remember, the revolution is endless war, comrades. 1984. They now see that the other Ukraine movement is getting the same as the other opposition platforms, the Party for Life, which has been banned in Ukraine. Zelensky's using legal warfare against many of his opponents. That is what they did to Trump, come up with politically motivated criminal charges to try and exclude people from running in the election, and they often label them as Russian agents or security threats. I've heard that they've labelled many American commentators as security threats. But they also named an 11-year-old ballerina as a security threat. Why? Because she won a competition and the Ukrainian didn't. See, the Ukraine hates to lose to anything. They're obsessed, so obsessed with national pride. It's what happens when you're See, national pride isn't the problem. It's zero morality. It's like racism. Loving your own race and not wanting to be foreign dominated isn't racism. This is the problem. The left can't stand nuance. Everything to them has to be, oh, you don't like brown people. We'll flood the country with brown people because they'll vote for us. And they'll just keep telling brown people that they're oppressed and there's racism and we'll protect you as long as you vote for us. It's all a big scam to steal your rights. They can't stand losing, so they're always got to find a way of perpetually winning. And Zelensky's chosen war. And you know why they say it'll end in 26, don't you? Because they're betting on the odds that sooner or later one of Zelensky's opponents will pop a cap right between that little punk's eyes, and he ain't going to see it coming. None of us will see it coming. Because AI predictions can't see the lone individual who has planned, has schemed, has positioned, and is willing to trade everything for success. Such driven fanaticism cannot be predicted, cannot be prevented. We've seen this. I won't bring up and it's often only through turning your head, somebody seeing you in the bushes. But most of the time, that fanatic has lost. That is true, right? Putin survived 9 attempts on his life, which ain't even a record, by the way. So we don't know how many Zelensky survived. We know 3 were made up, but some are real. Some had to be real. I think Zelensky is on borrowed time. Now, Zelensky, of course, is using legal oppression. And just to show you that Politico in Europe is normally... This is rare for Politico, particularly in Europe, to turn against Zelensky. This would normally be hidden behind a paywall. Jamie Detmer is no fan of Trump. He is an opinion editor, foreign affairs, a long-standing columnist at Politico. You don't get to be a long-standing columnist at Politico unless you're dyed blue and party loyal. Which means Ukraine is losing that much support. The left is looking for an exit. It's always what you don't say. But the political left, and this is what's happened, the Greens and other political left in Ukraine are now considered opponents and critics and even considered corrupt and being accused of collaboration with Russia. Do you see the European Greens collaborating with Russia? But that's what Zelensky's done, and his office has declined. And it's not just the Greens, because the Greens are not legal in Ukraine. They are operating as individuals within other parties. These are civil society activists. This is George Soros's own people. It's not just opposition lawmakers anymore. It's George Soros is losing control of the situation. Now, this is Zelensky getting desperate, and he's shaking down more and more people for money. Right? He's putting political pressure on them to go to war, but Europe isn't ready for war. France hasn't collapsed. The French government has not been able to manufacture consent to get rid of its excess white people by sending them off to war and then replacing them with more brown people because my boats. Algeria is on the nose. The French starting to literally openly hostile towards Algeria, except for the handful of idiots who still think, you know, it's going to be romantic. It's going to be like Casablanca and we retire to North Africa. It's just so romantic. Big open beaches that go for hours. You know, all the usual claptrap that liberal morons, right? They don't care that it's someone else's country. You know, everything's about my comfort. And, you know, living cheaply in other countries is for more comfortable retirement, you know. They don't care what they displace the locals, they upset the local economy, they just say, we bring jobs. You know, it's like, no, you're taking jobs out of France. And most of you are childless couples who just genocided France, so, you know, fuck you and your fucking comfortable retirement. But it's the fact that they're now trying to silence any critic as an automatic collaboration with Russia. And of course, the worst part is prominent Ukrainian activists are not pro-Russian, and in fact, they see Zelensky as trying to monopolize power to such a degree that he threatens democracy. Remember, you can have the illusion of democracy, but the people must never know that democracy. If the people know the system's rigged, they're outraged. Gavin Newsom could declare the system rigged because rules, while at the same time, claiming that Trump's rigging the system, while he himself, in fact, is the beneficiary of a rigged system that keeps him in office, known as gerrymandering. He split the vote in Orange County and all these Lincoln Republicans. My republic, they're ruining my republic. They're living for your Lincoln. They couldn't even, none of them could actually tell you what Lincoln stood for, But, a 2-hour arraignment, reading the charges only take 5 minutes, okay? This is all, these are corruption, and what they do is require bail in, hundreds of thousands of dollars. They've jailed former deputies, claiming that, corruption has been stopped. But Russia's mounted missile and drone strikes far greater scale than before. Energy is an all-time critical issue right now for Ukraine. That the country can no longer withstand Russian attacks. It's not just the energy system. Citing unnamed sources, there's been a leak that they've been lined up to take the fall, that they need a scapegoat now, and they're looking at blaming foreign policy experts and many others. Parts of Ukraine are not going to have electricity until spring. It's already at 10 degrees Celsius. That's 10 degrees above freezing in Celsius. So 32, 40, so 2.5. So it's below 60. Sorry. But people are pissed off. Protests are banned. Winter clothing is in short supply. And yet the so-called Ukrainian army is still buying drones for Ukraine instead of winter clothing for the people of Ukraine. Now, at least Trump's aid packages include winter clothing, and Poland and other countries have been quietly trying to work out a deal to get the elderly out of Ukraine. But Zelensky wants to hold these people hostage because every person who leaves Ukraine is less money for him. I mean, his people. No, really, seriously, apparently his paycheck is tied to the population of Ukraine. Allegedly. Because he and his party have, the more people who leave Ukraine, that's less representation. Less my democracy! Even though there is no democracy or voting in Ukraine, there's no elections. It's just a facade. Yeah, US airport, everybody's known for years, already going back to Biden. There's been F all the way actually further back, F-20, F-22, even the F-16, F-15 fighter program. The F-18s were never, full complement of F-18s were never built. F-16s, they're behind on upgrades. There's just so much money poured into American defense contractors. But it's not, and there's just, where's it all going? Well, it's all going on lobbying and partying and always coming up with the next research model, covering up mistakes and crashes, paying out deaths. A A lot of money was spent. A lot of these, also aircraft, they go to testing. They don't pass the test, so they sit on the runway for the rest of their life to count as inventory, but they never fly. And national assets, 300 short of fighters. A lot of them are just early retirement of craft that can't fly anymore. But why is it important? Well, these are actually over the years. This is transfer of assets to other countries that have never come back. Aircraft to Afghanistan, Korea, China, Taiwan, Japan, all around the world. Obama sending drones to Africa, which, fighter escorts, sometimes fighter escorts for refuelers. They fly and then come back. Often they become F-6, dozens of... They eventually get sold to other countries, Saudi Arabia, etc., get sold to the UAE. But they don't get replaced. Because they can only build these aircraft in large batches, and once the factory shuts down, they can't build more. It's ridiculous. They don't have a proper life cycle for product, and they don't have any future planning for product. Trump has changed this, though, with the B-21, in which they have a product life cycle and a whole... all laid out ahead of time. Looks like they're also trying to retrofit that to the F-35 program and perhaps even the F-47 and go back to the F-22 because the F-16s and F-18s, you can't keep them flying forever, okay? All right, so I'm getting off track, but anti-graft activists, these are often left-wing individuals. They're not part of any organised group. But Zelensky is trying to create any criticism of this because he's an egomaniac, right? He can't stand it, right? He's not a politician. He's a actor. He's a professional narcissist, okay? He cannot stand criticism. He cannot transform. I mean, just because you're an actor doesn't mean you can't transform into a politician. But this man hasn't transformed to a politician. He gives speeches and makes grand gestures, but deep down he's a insecure narcissist. He's weak. He refuses to negotiate. He always has to get his way. And now he's going after his opposition, who most of them are just activists going after corruption. And to say that Ukraine cleaned up its corruption is ridiculous. But now that Poroshenko and others, who are once darlings of Zelensky, Poroshenko was once the darling of the open society and helped groom Zelensky and helped prepare him for office and was at one point a key advisor and supporter and poured millions of dollars into Zelensky, probably billions, to only have Zelensky turn around and seize his assets to take control of the state media under his media... I forget the name of it. Zelensky's got a media advisor who runs actually Zelensky's media conglomerate. He's stealing state assets, right? Under the guise of war. So instead of, advising Ukrainians to move out of blacked out cities, seek shelter, to help relocate millions of people and save their lives, he's saying, get used to it. Get used to blackouts. And then say, well, men, if you really want to be warm, the fronts, we've got uniforms for you. So now and again we do take an even deep dive looking at the Russian side. Now and again you get told things that get left out. Now, apparently all these are all targets where air defenses apparently activated across Russia, with drones making its way to Moscow. Now the Russians don't tell you everything, but the majority of drones attack the Russians on the northern front. Most of this is shot down. The forces here have been estimated anywhere from only 20 to 50,000. It's believed that most of the border guards along this border are assisted by North Koreans. Now, apparently there's fighting along different parts of the front, as you can see in Kupiansk and other areas. Russian assault forces in Seversk and the town south. Russian assault forces reported by Russia in Konsk. Now, apparently, according to this map, the Russians control more of Rodi than Ukraine says, control more of POK than Rodi says. Ukraine says. But interesting enough, Myriad, which they named, which is in the Russian old name Dimitrov, they showed less control. Same with Luka, they showed less control. So there's more control here, less control here than the Ukrainians admit. Same with this, that Russia hasn't crossed into this, only attacked Novozhinka, which is interesting. They also show them having more territory here than the Ukrainian map, more territory here than the Ukrainian map. But not by much, there's not much difference. But as you can see here, as I said, you can see the major thrust, and that gives them more of a direction that this is going to here, not to the road to Zaporozhye, but to attack this. See, like I said, this is a circle of fortresses, and they're going, by the looks of it, for this one, and then lay siege to this one. So cutting off this, and then attacking this, so that kills that road through to there, but it also kills that road through to there, which again, as you know, the less roads increases the probability of Russian drones taking out more Ukrainian trucks. And here you can see the attack on Donetsk, Yasenovia, Glovingia, but Ukraine claims that their missiles, the Neptune missile, was used to strike a power plant. Does that look like a power plant to you? It's somebody's farm. And this is not a Russian site. This is Al Jazeera, not a Russian site, not friends of Russia. That's the state of the war as of today, with the probability that tomorrow there may still be... we don't have the results of today's drone and missile strikes. We only know air alerts. Maybe some will come tomorrow, which is odd, but I'm thinking that again it's just going to be the rail junction, the truck parks at north of Kiev, the rail junctions in the west, the truck parks at Sumy, the ammunition depots at Kharkiv and Dnipro. They're going to be if the increasing frequency, that should mean every second day instead of every third day, but they're not regular. But for a while, Russia did have a tempo, but they reduced that tempo. So we'll see what happens. But for now, like, share, subscribe, and please support me. Now, you can support me on Ko-Fi, buy my books, buy my merch, but you can also support me on Patreon. I have two, one for my writing and one for my RPG, based on my writing. But primarily, I hope that you buy and read my books. All my links are in the link tree, description below, in my profile, or scan the QR code on the screen. Please and thank you. Appreciate each and every one of you. See you in the next video, and bye for now.